In this video, I'm going to show you how to use the trigger conditions judiciously in Microsoft Power Automate. Now, I'm in Power Automate interface. Uh, I have opened a table, world table, and then there is an application based on that table called as world app. Now it's a simple table. It has countries, capital, account, contact, and there are some other fields. Now if I go inside any of the record, I'll see countries, capital, contact, account, population, and denomination. So now think about a scenario that if something happens within your form, so take for example, if someone puts population as say maybe 100, okay, or maybe someone puts at 101. So if the population crosses 101, then you should receive an email. If that is the case, then how do we go ahead and build those solutions? So it's pretty much simple. I have this email client open as well. So currently there are no emails I have received. So what we are going to do first is we will go into my flows, and it's like an automated action. So we are going to use automated cloud flow, and we call it as world app field change. And the trigger would be a Dataverse trigger, and when an row is added, modified, or deleted. So this is a simple flow. I'm going to go into the old designer, and what is going to change? So change type is if something is going to get modified. So is there anything modified? Yes, number three is modified. What is going to change in the table? So which table? The world table. What scope? Organization. So this is if anything changes in this table, then you do something. What are you going to do? You're going to send email. So send an email v2, and I'll just send it to myself. I'll just put something. So this is a very simple flow. What it does, if anything changes within the world application, then it will send out an email. So let's test it. Once it is saved, we will test this functionality. Now, okay, the flow is ready to go. So what we are going to do, we are going to go into the world application, and here maybe let's change the population, and we put something, and just click on save. And we can go back to the world application, and then we can go into other record and then make the changes. But as you see over here, an email has come. So what it says, okay, we have received an email. So what does that mean? I'll delete this email. What does that mean? If you have made any change, which we have made the change to the population field, then an email is sent. Now if I make any change to the denomination field, let's see what happens. Does it send out an email? Yes, it does. So now, even if you make any change to any of the fields, say if I remove account here, and then maybe I'll change the account to something else, I'll save it, then an email notification should be sent to the application as you see over here. So what is happening currently is like if you make any change to any field, a notification would be sent. But now, no, we don't want that. What we want, if people change the population, then only I should receive an email. If that is the case, then what you need to do, you need to go into the backend table and first understand what does this column means. So population. In the advanced option, you copy this logical name. This is the logical name. Okay. Now, in flow, how do you track that is now if a table is modified, then send out an email, but we are going much deeper in it. Now, what we want is if only the population field changes, then only send out an email. So here there is a field called a select columns. It says enter a comma separated list of column unique name. The flow triggers if any of them are modified. All good. What we're going to do, we're going to put get underscore population over here, and we'll say if in the table, if only this field changes, then only send out an email. If anything else changes, don't send out an email. So once this particular flow is saved, so let me save this flow. Now we are ready. We can again go back to the application and let's make a change in the population. Click on save and see whether you receive a notification. Yes, I did. I'll delete this. Again, go back. Let's make a change in the denomination. Now see the change. Let me refresh. No, we haven't got any email. That means our code is working fine. So what we have done, we have only changed the denomination. Now the core logic was if anything changes in population, then only send out an email, right? Now, what if there is a scenario whereby I want, if anything changes in population and in denomination, I want an email to be sent? Then again, go back to denomination, see this column, go into the logical name, copy this and put it in your select columns. And here you have to separate it by comma. So I've just separated by comma and then I'll save it. And now let's see the behavior. So now what we're telling, if anything changes in either population or denomination, send out an email. So let me make some change in the denomination. Click on save and we'll see whether we receive an email or not. And I'll just refresh this. And also we will go and see the flow run as well. So if you see here, the flow run, 1 minute ago something was triggered. Okay, and 3 minutes ago it was triggered. So we didn't receive any email. Let's go back into the flow and make some change in the column. So we have put a comma, but sometimes it doesn't work. So we have to just put a space around it. So let me put a space after the comma and now save it. So what we're telling, if population changes or denomination changes, then you send out an email. So let's go back to the application again, make some changes in the denomination, and you have received an email. So I'll delete this. Then what I'm going to do, I'm going to change something in population and make the change. Then I've received an email. I'll delete this email. So success. So what we have done, we have used two columns, and then if there's two column changes, then make a change, then send out an email. Now, what if our condition is a bit complicated? Say, I'll say if population is 100, then only send out an email. Can you do it over here? No, it's just ask for the column name over here. So let me remove this first. Okay, so we know this field gear underscore population. So we'll just focus on this one first. Okay, let me save this. Now there is another way whereby you can put some more conditions around the trigger. So this flow will only run if some condition matches, and the condition is if the population is equal to 100. So if you click on three dot over here, click on settings and then go back here, and here in the bottom it says trigger condition, specify one or more expression which must be true for the trigger to fire. So here we can go ahead and add a condition. Now how to write a condition? Writing condition is simple. We just need to put at the rate equals, put what is that you want to make it equal, like say x fff and equal to some value, okay, some ddd, and that's it. This is how you put that condition, but we don't know the syntax. How do we generate a syntax? But before we do that, we need to understand one thing. Like, let me close this and cancel this off. This particular flow run, this is a trigger basically. Okay, so how trigger works is, so if we see the past flow runs, let's go into one of the flow runs. So this is one of the flow run. So I'll navigate to the flow run over here, and this one, if you see, something has triggered this. Okay, so if you see the output over here, Let me copy this output over here. So if you closely monitor this output, it says it has a header component and then it has a body component, and body has various other fields which gets triggered. Okay, these are the fields which is part of that table. Okay, so this is very important to understand. Now this entire thing is coming from trigger. Okay, trigger, and this value is coming from trigger body. So this one is coming from trigger body. So if you want to access, say, this component, then you can either access it via trigger or you can access it via trigger body. So if you want to access via trigger, you need to parse and say trigger body slash something. Or if we just use trigger body, then you can directly reference the component. I will explain you by just showing you in a notepad. So notepad, let me open the notepad. Okay, so yes, so here the syntax basically lies around trigger body. Either you can use this function or you just use trigger. So these are the two options which you can use. Now let me zoom this a bit. Yeah, so trigger body already has a reference to that variable. Okay, so the variable was basically gir underscore population, so you can directly use that. So how do you reference in Power Automate is if you use trigger body, then we are already in a body, we just put a question mark around it, and then in square brackets we just put the field name. So my field name was gir underscore population, which is logical name of the field which we are trying to assess. What are we trying to assess? We are just telling that if this field is 100, okay, if someone puts 100 in that, then send out an email, else don't do anything. Now you includes all this thing in a method. Basically you're calling a function equals. So this is the syntax. Now similarly over here we will again do the same thing. If you are using trigger, then you use question mark, and then same thing, get underscore population, whatever field you want, and then this is operand 1, operand 2 is 100. If both are equals, then you run them. Now in order to decorate this further, what we need to do is we need to put an at the rate in front of it. So you can use either of this in the um, expression. So let's copy this and see whether it works or not. Okay, so we are just experimenting for a moment. So the condition is basically if the population is equal to 100, then only send out an email. Now here, if you come here, go to settings, go to trigger conditions, paste the trigger condition. So at equals trigger body, get population comma 100, and click on done. And if there is no error, then I think we should be good, but it clearly shows you that there is something wrong over here. It says the power flows logic app flow template was invalid. Okay, now why it was invalid is because maybe something might have gone wrong. So it says at the rate equals trigger body, so this is all good. We put a bracket, then question mark, and then we put a field parameter. Now I purposefully made this mistake just because this may happen to you also during the development stage. Now if you closely monitor the notepad, we are missing the single quotes right here. So it has to be a proper single quote. So here also it should be a proper single quote. Now if we do this and copy this, go to the settings again, go to trigger conditions, let me paste this again and click on done, save it. Now I think the flow looks good. So let's go back to the application here and make the population as something. Let's see whether we receive an email or not. So we are making population as some number. No, we are not getting any email. Good. Let's make it 100 now and click on save and see whether we receive a notification. Yes, we did get a notification. So what does that indicate is that this flow will only run if something changes in the population and also the value is 100. So we have gone one step ahead. Okay. Now other thing what we can do is in say denomination, we can also say that if population is 100 and denomination is something, then make the change. Okay. So going back to the flow over here, let me go into the settings, and here in the settings what we are trying to do is like we can add one more trigger condition. So here what happens, specify one or more expression which must be true for the trigger to fire. Now we will again write the same trigger condition, but not for the population field but for the denomination field. Now denomination field is called as gir underscore denomination, so I'll copy this, and again going back to the notepad, we will copy this as well, and here instead of population we will use denomination, and maybe let me call this denomination as say pound. Okay, so if someone puts this as pound, then the flow should trigger. So let's copy this and put it over here. So the condition now is specify one or more expression which must be true for the trigger to fire. Now, what we have done is we have made the changes in the settings over here. We have made this condition as 100 population and denomination as pound. So if this condition is satisfied, which is technically an AND condition, then only an email will be sent. So let's see here. If I make anything in population, and here I'll make dollar, and if I click on save, then there is no email. Okay. So if I make population as 100 and I'll click on save, I don't see any email. Now, if I make denomination as pound, so that means population is 100 and denomination is pound, then I have received an email. So what does this indicate is this is technically an AND condition. So if we go here, settings is AND. So if you have multiple condition, you can put it over here. Now, what if my condition is not and, if it is or, either 100 or pound, then how can we get this particular thing going? So it's simple. What you need to do is let me go into the notepad here. Now, these are the two conditions which we have. What I'm going to do is I'm going to copy this condition. I'll put it over here. First condition. Second condition is here. I'll paste it over here. Simple thing. What you need to do first is remove this at the rate. Remove this at the rate. And here on the top, you put a big at the rate here. And you put a OR condition, OR. Opening bracket, closing bracket. Right? And we are going to put something over here. Now, what is the something? Is A comma B. Now, what is A? A is this and B is this. Let me take this off. Cut this. Or cut this. Paste it. And this bracket should be properly closed. So this is our condition. So let me copy this. And now I'm going to paste it over here in just one condition. So I'll remove the condition, second one, and this is my big condition. Let's see whether it is well formed or not. I'll click on save. If it saves correctly, then we can safely assume that it is well formed. Okay, let's try out now. Go into the application and make this as something. Let's see whether you receive an email or not. You should not receive an email. Now the second condition, we'll make this 100. So if has been an 100 and pound, then if it had been an AND condition, then we in the earlier case we would have received an email, right? Because that was like kind of an or condition. So if this was the earlier case, then we could have received an email. But what we want is like if denomination is something else and population is 100, I should receive an email. Let's see whether it works or not. If this is successful, then we can say that we have written a successful or condition. Yes, this is successful. We have received a written a successful or condition. Again, other way around, if I make this something and make this as pound, then also it should work because one of the condition is successful. Let's click on save and I have received an email. So what we have done over here in Power Automate is first we started the journey of checking what changes within the table. Okay, so if you want anything to be if anything changes within the table, then don't put anything in the column over here. If you want some field to be part of the change process, then add this column over here. And if you have multiple columns, separate it with a comma. If you want to put some conditions around that column, what we have done is we have used the settings, the trigger conditions of that trigger, and we have put condition over here. And now you can put multiple conditions, but that will evaluate to and. Now, if you want an or condition, then this is the way through which you can use or condition. Or if you're even if you want to use and condition and if you want to use just one, you can use this as well. So what it will do, it will take this condition in an and, which is equivalent to putting it in multiple rows. So this is how you can use trigger condition. So that's it, folks. This is how you basically use the trigger conditions wisely for your flow to trigger based on column change or based on some conditions which gets evaluated to true and then the flow triggers. Thanks for watching.